All right.
Got it. It's
You're
preparing for
live.
the meeting. Okay, and then I'm going to get you all the link.
All right, sounds good. So while you're doing that, I will ask you, Shamika, as we're building the audience and folks are joining us, what's the last movie that you saw in a theater? You're on mute.
The last movie I saw in the theater, what did we go see last? The Eternals, right? Kids, is that what
That was last year.
No, that wasn't last year. I'm sorry.
That
Doctor
was like
Strange. They all
Doctor
blend.
Strange.
Okay.
No, they don't. If
That's
you are first of all, if you are a true Marvel fan, they don't blend. There is no blending with Marvel movies.
You know what? I'm just saying, there was some mixing. So Doctor Strange was the last.
Okay, that was this year. Okay.
Now, hold on, you all. I'm still trying to, let me get this, and I will be right with you. You see,
No problem.
I spoke way too soon about
That's
my
okay.
skill.
Oh, Ashanti, thank you. Can you send us the YouTube link, Ashanti? Because I don't think Pastor should have to deal with that anyway, since he's one of the panelists.
And Ashanti, will you text it to us too?
Oh, there we go. There's the link. Thank you.
Okay, then I'm going to go to my YouTube page and share it, and then I'll be ready to roll.
Oh, that was me. Okay, so just so you know, Pastor, it's showing us as one person speaking at a time. So you probably have to change your settings again to show all three of us.
Okay, let's see. Now I've got all three of you on now. Is it still showing?
I'll ask Shanti to take a look at it and see if she's seeing it as all three of us. Okay, she's got all three of us. Good, we're good. Perfect. All right. What about you, Pastor? Same question. Oh no, you're doing your thing.
No, you go ahead. You said the last.
No, I was just gonna ask. Yeah.
The last movie I just went and saw and I had never seen the first one, but I watched the new Top Gun movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I didn't watch the first one because it just didn't appeal to me. But I was surprised. It was a good action-packed movie. You know, for what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the first one's on Netflix now. A lot of I'm like, of course, they never anyway. It's on.
But I don't want to see it now. I don't want to see the original now. But I did see it years ago when it first came out. Not in the theater though. But I mean, it was okay.
Yeah, I never saw the first one.
Okay. All right.
Let's see.
So whenever y'all are ready, let me know.
All right.
Oh, you know what?
Tell us your movie, the last movie you went to see.
The last movie that I went to see in a theater, it was with my son, Advocate, and at Stony Brook. I believe it was at Stony Brook. What was it? Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to ask him. Oh, you know what? It was probably Venom last year. Yep, I think that's right.
All right, I have tweeted my links and I'm ready to roll when you all are.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you to everyone who is tuning in to our multi-platform live Facebook and YouTube. I am State Representative Attica Scott, and it's an honor to be joined here by Shamika Parrish-Wright and Pastor Tim Findley, and to just dig into Louisville politics for a little bit, because we all have values and visions that are either aligned or shared, or that we want to make sure we put out there to folks to let y'all know how we are moving forward. So just a little bit of housekeeping, and Shamika and Pastor might have some additional things they want to add. So please chat any questions that you have into the Facebook chat and the YouTube chat, because Ashanti Scott is monitoring both of those, and she will let us know. She'll lift up whatever questions y'all have so we can do our best to respond to those. We're going to keep this to an hour. We want to respect and value everyone's time, including our own. So we'll be done here by about 7 o'clock. And if you are so inclined, we encourage you to share the link to the lives on your social platforms as well, so that other people have the opportunity to engage in this conversation with us. So I'll go over to you, Pastor Findley. Do you want to say any introductory comments about yourself, or any housekeeping that you want to share as well?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you to yourself and Shamika for setting this up. I think this is so needed, and I think it's a powerful example. And we'll get into this a little bit later on tonight, but a powerful example of where we need to be as a city in terms of leadership. So I'm happy to be here, and we're going to get into some things and talk about other things. And again, it's a great moment. I feel honored to be here with you all. And yeah, it's on.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Pastor. Same question to you, Shamika. What kind of introduction do you want to do of yourself, whatever you want to do, and then also if there's any housekeeping you want to share out with folks.
All right, thank you, Representative Scott, for being our fearless leader for tonight. I always think we should go more than an hour. We got so much to talk about, but I do respect people's time, and I'm just thankful to be here. It's 2 weeks later, you all, and Team Shamika is still processing this, and so this is really a good platform for us to talk about Louisville politics, to talk about what it's like to run a race here in Louisville, and to talk about why it is so important that we engage into this process as in whatever level that we choose to, because we need it, and it's a tool for change. So excited to be here tonight, especially with you two, and thank you.
All right, sounds good. I see this as being like a black table talk, if you will. So although I am helping to just guide the conversation along, I think any of us should just jump in if we have any questions of one another at any time, because we all have something to bring to the conversation, and I'm simply your guide on the journey. So the first question that I have for y'all is, like you said, Shamika, it's been 2 weeks since primary election day. So what has the community response been to your campaigns, or not even to your campaigns, but to you all as candidates and what you brought to this election season? And we can start with Pastor.
It's been, and I say this just as I'm very, very proud. I'm proud of the campaign that I ran. I'm proud of the campaign that Shamika ran. I'm proud of the campaign that we both ran, although we were sort of in adversarial positions. My respect for Shamika never waned. Even in our sort of playful back and forths at certain events, it was always in love, always realizing that no matter what happens, we were going to support one another. And because of that, it's just been a lot of love from Louisvillians, just going places and people, expressing their support, expressing, how happy and proud they were to see certain things. It's been a very, very, it's been a powerful learning experience. But also an opportunity to show that we don't have to do politics the way we see politics from other people. And I think people they've respected that. And I'm looking forward to, not just the future, but continuing to reshape the narrative and the thoughts behind Louisville politics. So it's been great from the people. Now we'll get into other things, but from the people, it's been absolutely fantastic.
That's great.
I'm ready. I'm already ready for controversy. I'm trying to pull back and be nice.
Right. But listen, I was just going to say nice won't bring us justice, but there we go. But you said something, though, that I want to make sure I come back to, which is around changing the narrative and shaping the narrative around Louisville politics, because that's so vital. It's fundamental. We have to do it. We can't keep seeing things happen the way that they've always happened, because we can talk about some things that have popped up in the news today that show exactly how people operate in this community, how they take us for granted, how 2 weeks after primary election day, we already see gentrification efforts, right? 2 weeks after primary election day, we already see friends of the mayor getting money for their pet projects. So we can talk about that as well if we have time. But I want to go ahead over to you, Shamika, and ask you the same question. What in these past 2 weeks since primary election day has the community response been to you as a candidate, and what you brought to this election season?
Thank you. I share Pastor Findley's sentiments and yours. I will tell you, everywhere I go, they say, I voted for you. I'm starting to feel like we need a recount, but the gap is so wide that I don't want to get people's hopes up. In the reality, the numbers are what they are, but there's a lot that we can do now going forward. I think my race showed people power. It showed that a woman is electable if you vote for her. A Black woman does have a viable chance. I think too many people didn't take our races serious enough until the end. And those people, some of them look like us and some of them look like other folks. I do think that it was really showing that we're tired and we're ready to work together and do our part. That's what we did running for office. We all did our part. We put our neck out there. We risked our lives. We risked the lives of our loved ones. I mean, at one point, 2 of my daughters had their cars totaled in the first 2 months of this year, 3 months of this year. And I was like, I had to like quiet this conspiracy theories down. I had to just focus on, Shamika, you're doing the right thing, and I'm not giving up on the people. For me, it was about not quitting, not giving up on the people, showing the people that there is a way, understanding that we are still a one call, shut it down kind of town. Even though we're expanding, there's still some dark forces and powers that be that are working against us, that smile in our faces, but look different behind the scenes. And we went against all of that together. Even like Tim said, even though we were on the different sides for this as because both of us were running, we still felt the pressure, an immense amount of pressure to extra eyes on us. As a Black woman, I'm used to everybody watching me and watching what I do, but I was being really careful about when I made calls, when I did this. I felt like people were waiting for me to fail. They was waiting for a controversy. I told my husband, look, I don't even want them to set you up and try to make you have an affair. Like, be careful, right? I mean, I joke, but the reality is what we were up against was dangerous because we were going against the status quo. The status quo is in full force, and they don't want to lose. And they're not in it for the same reasons we are. We're in it for people power, lifting people, lifting these races, lifting the opportunities to join these boards and commissions and to be a part of real change. And I think that to me, it meant a great deal. My husband washed my car and took my car magnets off, and I felt it. I was like, it's okay. It's been 10 days, and I felt it when I went outside and looked at my car, but it's not over. We get there together is a real movement. And our races were a movement. They can't deny you, Representative Scott, raised a great deal of money. I haven't seen one Black woman in this state raise as much as you raised. I know Tim and I struggle with fundraising, but our dollar had to count 10 times, and that's what we saw. That's the kind of work that's cut out for people like us when we run. Thank you.
I want to add something that Shamika said that I don't want to gloss over it. I want people to really understand this was not just a race where we were showing up to forums, going on TV, saying what we were saying, and that was it. There were so many things behind the scenes that we had to fight through. We were getting calls about, well, this group said this and this person said that, and they're trying to link you to this. And there were very, I'll just say it, fear-mongering that really from the beginning that we had to fight through. And I don't know if people in Louisville understand that one of the reasons why we would go to certain forums or we would get emails and people are asking not policy questions, but they're asking things that are just completely out of left field. I think people need to realize that does play a part, especially when you're talking about, running for public office. And Representative Scott, this, people will use, and I'm talking about people in positions, will use anything they can to discredit you. And we saw a lot of that.
Yeah, you're right. And for me, in these past 2 weeks since primary election day, I've had people say that very thing to me, Pastor. They've said, we saw what they did to you. We saw the things that were said, the race baiting, the reverse racism kind of language, accusing you of being a liar and things like that. But without having to have any kind of proof, right? That people can just throw out
Right.
all kinds of accusations about you without ever having to back it up. And people know it. So I appreciate the folks who were like, we saw through it. We know it's sadly part of the ugliness of politics, but one of the reasons why I was so honored to be part of this conversation is because for me, it's with two people who did show us how to be different, that you don't have to be the ugly that people often associate with political campaigns. You can be different than that. You can be better than that. And our kids deserve it. Our family members deserve it. Our ancestors deserve it, right? We talk about being our ancestors' wildest dreams. I don't know that their wildest dreams is that we tear one another down. Right.
Right.
I think that their wildest dreams is that we figure out ways to build each other up, even if we don't like each other. Still, I don't have to like you to know that you are fighting for us and for our community, and I'm going to support that. So thanks for responding to that first question.
And listen, we had a ball.
Oh,
we had a ball in ours. Like I would feel bad sometimes because I would be joking right up till the time of the debate or forum with Shamika, and just it was from a real place. We're cool. We like each other. But I would have to get myself together and say, wait a minute, you got to go at her at the forum, in the right way. But right. I'd be in there joking, but it was a great experience. It was.
Let me say he is so right, and he is very funny. And I just remember when he first announced, that's why I posted that picture of us. We took that selfie at one of those events, and I was like, ladies, I know it. I know the appeal. We got to admit to ourselves that many of us, especially activists and organizers, are looking for the next Martin Luther King. The looks, the tall, the dark, the hands. It wasn't just that. It was the voice. It was the calmness. It was your experience. It's all those things that you brought. So I knew once you entered the race, my work with Black women and Black people, I knew that would be a challenge, but it was a welcome challenge. And I want people to know that Pastor Findley and I came together at least 3 to 4 times. We talked over the phone, we met in person, we tried to figure it out. And then we said to ourselves, nobody asked the mediocre white men to relinquish their campaigns, to join one another, but everybody came to us and said, why don't you join? And so that's something that we need to talk about. And everybody said, you're splitting the vote. Well, the vote was already split because you have Green, you have Nicholson, you have Black people who were dead set on voting for those people. So even if Tim and I had came together, we would have pulled some votes and did what we had to do. But I want people to understand that there was more at play because you had some gatekeepers who were supporting Greenberg and Nicholson. I'm just going to call it what it is. And so that issue we had to deal with. What was important for Tim and I to do is to spread our message throughout the county. This is a whole county race. And there's a lot of people from Anchorage. I was telling Representative Scott, from Anchorage to Portland, who feel like they've lost so much during the merger. They've lost during the civil unrest. They've lost in so many areas. And what we saw with our campaigns is that we were blamed for everything. We were vilified. Somebody said, some council person said that they didn't think we were competent enough. I mean, somebody asked me if I could add.
Shamika, anti-Semitism. Remember that. We both got anti-Semitism.
Right. And when I met with Greenberg, I said, let me tell you something. My people don't always be like, I don't know if you're Jewish or not because your last name is Greenberg or whatever. We don't focus on that. The Jewish person that I worked with the most was Susie Post. And there's a bunch of other folks, but there's some of my white allies that I didn't even know they were Jewish. That's not how we always identify people. We say there's white people, there's Black people, there's Native American, and so on and so on. So I think that they used that, and it was used against us in a very, very negative way, because that's never been a place that I've operated from. And the last thing I want to say is, it really took our young people. I want to thank our young people who stood up, who stood out against the grain, who supported our campaigns. That's why I made sure that I spoke to them. And they knew what the integrity means, what it means to show up and be supportive. Some of them even were invited to fundraisers, but because they supported me, they said, you know what? We support Shamika. We don't want it to look like we're supporting you. So they turned down money. And I wish more Black people, more prominent people did the same thing. Turn away from the money, because the money by itself will not save us. It will not cure us. That money, sometimes you hear, oh, they got $50 million. Where is that 50 million? We don't feel it. But people would have felt the decisions that all of us would have made because we come from the community, we come from the people, we've lived the issues, and we fought against those issues together. And that's something that people would have felt. So we got to tell people, one, okay, you can work for Greenberg, but you vote for the candidate that speaks to you, because this primary was our general election. This was when we got to choose who would best represent us. And people just don't take a chance on change enough for me. We gamble, we play the lottery, we bet on horses, but you have people with proven backgrounds and records of showing up, of being supportive, of doing everything they can, of putting their jobs and their lives on the line, but that's still not good enough because you're looking at this white is right. Oh, he's a white man, and that's all I've seen in leadership. We have to work harder to turn away from that and change that narrative that you all talked about earlier.
And again, to reiterate something that Shamika said, because I hear this all the time, and I know she does as well, and it needs to be said and stated again. The Black vote was already split. People need to understand that there were a lot of things, people that looked like us, who never heard our policies, didn't invite us to conversations, didn't ask us what we stood for. They were already in particular camps. So it was not simply that two Black people are running and they're going to automatically split the vote. That is not the case. That vote was already split. And we saw everyone from iconic figures in our community to business folk to Black pastors who were rolling with the candidate that either promised them something or whatever the case may be. I don't know. But I stop people when they come about that split vote. No. The vote's been split in Louisville for a long time, and it was well before two Black people ran.
And you're so right. And we're the only candidates that spoke up for each other. Because when they were trying to vilify me and connect me to what happened with Greenberg, I didn't hear nobody in Greenberg's camp say, well, Shamika works for the Bail Project. She didn't bail this person out. They did not stop the misinformation. They actually perpetuated it. And that was, to me, was so wrong. I had to always be on the defensive and defend myself in every single area, which I already did that when I was out there for the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement. I put my job on the line. I put everything on the line then. And then even during this campaign, I was under the same kind of stress. It was because I was in those positions that I was able to be a resource during that movement. But not once did I run my campaign just based on that movement. I ran my campaign from being somebody who's been engaged, who's advised and talked to the last two mayors, who've been invited to be in these spaces when they need someone or they need to reach a group they haven't been able to contact. A lot of candidates, a lot of elected officials, lawyers, doctors, all those people reach out to me for advice. But I did not see the same amount of support on, no, let me dispel these rumors about Shamika. Let me dispel these rumors about Pastor Findley. So much so that the FBI was at my door and my daughter's answering the door and bringing me in for questioning as a possible witness when I had nothing to do with that. And so none of the candidates said, oh, no, that's not Tim. That's not Shamika. That's not who they fit in this community. So you're exactly right. That's why I made sure that I always spoke highly of you, Pastor Findley, and of course you, Representative Scott, but highly of you because I know that they were pitting us against each other and they also were vilifying us with our work, right? Your work, because whatever, you're in the church and they said, well, he was at his church before. He came to an event I had. And they used that to constantly build on that to damn our campaigns. But what that showed is $2 and something. I don't know. Chris did the math. What it shows is that people power message works.
Yeah.
And if we had a quarter of the money that these folks that go around, we would imagine our reach. We didn't need the millions to make the voices and make our names known. We needed the people to understand that you had a real representative of who you are and who you're trying to be in this city.
That's
and
right.
You think about combined votes with the amount of money. Shamika, we raised between us both somewhere around $110,000, $100,000. Not even a fraction of what. Not even. I mean, it was a small amount, but the effect that we had, if it's me, that sends a very, very clear message that there's something wrong in the community.
That's right. And you got to look out for these two individuals. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat from Ashanti. I'm going to come to them, but you all talked about something that to me seems important to lift up, which is this word support. So what does support for a campaign mean to you? Because I got a lot of people saying, I support you, I support your campaign, but we need to be very concrete with folks about what that means, right? It has to be more than talk if you're only saying it to me. So for y'all, what does support mean for a campaign?
Well, I think it's two things. Well, it's several things. Number one, I think the culture in Louisville around politics, we need to bring more education and more understanding. It really does take money. And support is not just a liking of a Facebook post. It's not just see me in Walmart and say, hey, I'm with you. Support really is putting dollars where your words are, number one. But then number two, and I want to send this message to especially those who have influence in the city, it's not being cowardly. It is showing support openly. It is speaking about who you support and why you support them. We have too much in Louisville, and I'm not on here to bash Louisville because I love my city. I'm looking forward to other forms of leadership and what we can do. But I think when you talk about education and really getting our city to where it needs to be in terms of political education, we've got to come out of the shadows. We've got to do our research. There is no way, and I'm saying this publicly, and I mean it, and I stand behind it. There is no way you could attend a forum, go to our websites, or talk to me or Shamika and say we weren't prepared, we didn't have a plan, and we didn't have specific plans. That period. But I ran into so many people who would say, well, what about this? And what about that? What do you believe about this? And I'd say, well, it's on the website, but I'll explain it to you. And you would explain it to them. And yet it was still almost like this, like you said, Shamika, the ice is right. The ice is colder on that side. So it's almost like this idea I have with benefit of the doubt versus burden of proof. We constantly had the burden of proof, constantly, explain everything. But other candidates had the benefit of the doubt, which means they didn't have to have really any concrete anything, but they came into it already as a front runner. And I think when you talk about Louisville, what needs to happen, talk about support, do your research and then take a stand. Put your dollars where your support is. People were, well, Pastor Findley, I don't see enough of your yard signs in the West End. Them joints ain't free. They're not free at all. You don't see them because I ain't got no money. Pastor Findley, we need to see your commercial. Let me go back to the record and look at what you gave. I'm gonna step into pastor mode. What have you given? That's support. These things aren't free. And I realize that in our community, oftentimes people are on shoestring budgets. And that's why I didn't push a lot. But I also want to make sure for those who would critique and say, why didn't we see more of this? And why didn't we see more of that? Well, support the campaign and donate. And maybe we can start to see more of that. So, all right, I'm coming off my soapbox. All right, Shamika, it's on you.
No, I want to jump in real quick to say one of the things that I appreciate about some of my donors for my campaign is that we had monthly donors of people who were giving $1 a month. That means they were digging deep into pockets that were basically empty, but saying, I value your campaign so much and I'm going to give what I have to give. And this $1 a month is what I have to give. And so you're exactly right, Pastor. We as candidates also have to be willing to go to our folks who grew up where I did in Beach Terrace and say, listen, if you really do believe in what I can bring to this position as a member of Congress, donate what you can. And if that's $1 a month, do that $1 a month and become a monthly donor so that it helps me build up that support consistently. So go ahead, Shamika.
All right, she stole part of my thunder, but I want to say monthly pledgers help sustain our campaign throughout. We started early, and I will tell that to people. Grassroots campaigns have to start as soon as they can because we're fighting such an uphill battle. So we've had monthly pledgers, just like Representative Scott, from $5 up to $100 a month who have given. And I can't thank all of them enough because if I didn't know where our next batch of yard signs was going to come from, I knew our regular monthly bills, our website, our cell phone, all of those things, our staff was paid because we had those monthly donors to come in. So I will say support is just what Pastor Findley said. It comes in many forms. When he was talking, I was thinking like there was a song, I don't know who sang it, was it Blackstreet, but like, if you love me in the light and the dark. That's how I feel. People have to learn to love and support us in the light and the dark. You know, people will say it when they see us or see us at an event, but they didn't know how to do it publicly and they were scared. And I think one of the things that was used against us, because we have so many community ties, real community ties more than any of our opponents, people use that against us. I talk to some people that's like, well, I work for a nonprofit and I can't donate or I can't support you. In your personal capacity, you're able to do a lot of things, but you have to be clear that it's in your personal capacity. If you are representing an organization or a business, there's things that you are allowed to do and there's things you can't do. So I think there was a lot of confusion on what people were allowed to do and what they can't. So the group of people had gotten together and said, we want to put this money together to pay for a commercial for Pastor Findley and Pastor Shamika. They could have done that separate from us, if just like the PACs do. Some of our endorsements didn't come with money. I think all endorsements from those that can afford it should come with some type of money, because our dollars in each and one of our campaigns, and you see it in our numbers, our dollars count 10 times. So every dollar that we spend in these campaigns, it multiplied 10 times. A lot of my team gave their time and their support. I literally could not afford the team that I had. I couldn't afford to pay them individually if it wasn't for some of them choosing to give their services and support in kind. And some of them, they invoiced me when they could. So we did some delayed invoicing, but we made sure we paid everybody a livable wage of $25 an hour. And also when they gave that in kind, they were credited for that $25 an hour. So that's another resource that people can use to support grassroots candidates and campaigns like ours, is using in-kind donations. Also, everybody has value. So whether you want to write the thank you notes, whether you want to pick up soda for an event, all of those things made a difference, and it saved us money that we were able to use. So I put resources, time, definitely money, and definitely spreading the word. Word of mouth is everything. Correcting people, spreading the word, showing up where you can. And people were torn. They said, I don't want to lose my job by supporting you. I have people who currently work for Louisville Metro. I have police officers who donated and gave me information. And I respected their privacy, because I know what it's like to put your job on the line. And my employer is in LA, but their employer is here and they could be fired. And this is the way, the retaliation. So letting people show up the way that they can, but those people having options to put them to work. And so that's what we did with our campaign. That really helped our dollar go further, because we had a lot of people giving and supporting. And so those are some of the things, is using your resources, writing op-eds, writing letters, sending emails to the people that you know, sending text messages to folks and saying, this is the candidate I'm supporting, here's why, or here's a list of candidates that I'm supporting, because we're not allowed to run slate politics. For those of you like, why y'all all didn't run together? We would have loved that, but we're not in a place where we could do that together. So we had to run individual campaigns and support each other the best way we could without breaking any campaign finance laws or things like that. So there's laws. So more education, that's what I'm planning to do from now until November, is educate people more about campaigns, why it's important to vote, why it's important to get to those polls, and why it's important to give. But monthly pledging is it, you all. That is it. Making sure that if you can't give, anybody could have gave up to $2,000. What the rich families did is say it's I don't want to say one of the known names, Jackson family. They'll take and give $2,000 in every one of their family.
Everybody will give it. Right.
That's what you saw when Greenberg had the Waltons. That was the Waltons that owned Walmart. He got $2,000 from each one of them. $10,000 he really didn't need. That $10,000 didn't make or break his campaign, but that's what they do. Everybody in that family gives at the max amount. So my husband and my family could give $2,000. I could give $2,000, but that's it for that election cycle. So what we have to do is start educating people about what they can do. We all can't afford to give $2,000, but we can give monthly amounts to the campaigns that we support, and then do the other things, the social media. Nobody has a grasp on the impact of social media, but it's been very, very helpful. So sharing on social media, you sharing resources, and doing what you can.
Can I add something too?
Please,
Because I think,
please do. And I'm going to jump in here and go rapid fire because we're getting lots of questions, y'all.
well, to this point, one of the things that I learned through this process is that in certain communities, and I won't even say certain communities, in non-Black community, there are people who you say their name and you know that's political education. That's the person that knows this. That's the person that knows that, whether they're in the Democratic Party, whatever the case may be. In our community, we don't have that. I think that going forward in a solution is that and I think, hearing Shamika and she's committed to doing that, Representative Scott, you bringing us together shows that you're committed to doing that. It's time for us to have that name recognition in our community where we're bringing that education. We're the ones saying, okay, do this, do that. The fact that one of the candidates, I think his father started the PAC. They knew to do that. There were certain things we didn't know. Now, with this level of education that we've learned and we're seeing and learning from people like Representative Scott and others, we're saying, okay, in our community, we need to be the one that says this way, that way, do it this way, because we have not had that in Louisville. I think that's what's different in 2022 than any other year. That no, we didn't get the outcome that we wanted, but we are just as committed to bringing that playbook that's been hidden for all this time and saying, oh no, that ain't how that works. Don't do that. Do this. And if you do this, it can no, you may work for that nonprofit, but individually, you can do this. No, Pastor, as an individual, you can say X, Y, and Z. Bring that level, and we start to see the unbalanced rules become more balanced. That's what I'm committing to doing, is bringing that level of education.
That's it right there. So we got a number of questions, and I'm going to read them as they are coming through to us. How do you all feel about the endorsements of prominent people in the Black community like Maddie Jones and Keisha Dorsey being given to the white men in the race, and why do you think that was?
Let me jump in because I want to tell you all something. I told Representative Scott and Pastor Findley, I actually voted for Keisha Dorsey. Now, I supported Keisha Dorsey when she ran for office. I advised her campaign as needed. I was supportive of her. She is my councilwoman. And she called me a couple times to consider Beverly Chester's Burton mayor seat. And I said no. And then Joni Jenkins' seat because of the redistricting. I said no, I'm staying in this race. And this is for the people. But I'm gonna tell you, even though she did donate to my campaign, her and her mother. But what made me vote for her, even this, it's not personal for me, you all. She's still a good councilwoman for the district that I live in. I've seen her. I did a ride around with her. I saw the people recognizing, knowing her. I saw the improvements she's done to the park. I put my ego aside. I put my personal feelings to the side. And when I was in that voting booth, I said, even though this person has worked against me because she's supporting this other guy, she did explain to me that she had a relationship with him and his wife and yada, yada, yada. I would have still went with the Black woman, but she chose to do something different. And I told her to be careful because these people will use us. They use our names, they use our likeness, and then they don't carry through on their promises. So I told her, I hope she has a backup plan. I hope she's not putting all her eggs in that basket. And I said this to Greenberg. Everybody feels like this was Barbara Sexton Smith race, that she's really going to be the mayor, or David James is really going to be the mayor. He looks like a puppet to a lot of these people. And that is a decision that when people decide to put their endorsements behind, you weaken your endorsements if you just do it based on money. People need to have integrity. They need to be really engaged in the community. They really need to have the community's eyes forward. So I did vote for her despite that. Now, I do think that when these things happen with Maddie Jones, some of our leaders are going to be on the wrong side. When she did that, Robert Bell, who endorsed me my whole campaign, kept my yard sign in there and everything. I started getting calls and people saying, why is there a Greenberg and a Robert Bell? Those two don't go together. I said, well, I've talked to people and they said Barbara Sexton Smith went to their door and said, you can still put this here. And his grandmother endorsed him. They do what a lot of our civil rights leaders and older folks have done for a very long time. They just go with the status quo. That's the reality. And that's why we need more younger people, more people who are our age and under to be engaged in the politics because they become the only voice, like Pastor Findley said. If you don't have a go-to, who do I talk to? What do I do? Then those people's voices get elevated and ours get squashed. So I respectfully respect both of those Black women. I understand why they did. I don't understand why they did what they did, but they did what they did. But I still didn't let that deter me from voting for a good candidate for that Metro Council seat.
Miss Maddie Jones is iconic in our community. I love what she has stood for, but I thought it was very, very frustrating. I'll say that. That's the word I'll use. It was frustrating. And not just, Councilwoman, it was others as well, especially those who I never had a chance to even present, what policies, none of those things. It was just, we were behind the 8 ball from the beginning. So I thought it was frustrating, but moving forward, we realize who is who. We know the game and how it's played. And my goal is going to be to replace as many gatekeepers as possible.
All right.
I second that.
And I will just say with my campaign, I know that people at one point were asking me, so is Yarmouth running for re-election? Because it seems like he's running this campaign. And unfortunately, it did seem like that. So we don't know whether or not we're going to have, we don't know who's going to win in November, but, if it's the Democratic nominee, Morgan McGarvey, we don't know, is he going to be someone who will stand on his own 2 feet, or does he have a steering wheel in his back from his cryptocurrency billionaire donor or the retiring congressman? So there is another question that I have related to this topic, and I want to start out with you, Pastor, simply because we were both endorsed by the Black Church PAC, which for me as a woman of faith, as a Black Baptist, I could not have been more honored to receive that endorsement. But what I do have to ask you though, Pastor, is, and you're a pastor, why didn't we see more Louisville pastors involved with our campaigns?
Because I think that many, the culture amongst pastors in Louisville is one that has not been, and I'm not talking about all pastors, I'm saying as a whole, it has not been one that took the bull by the horns. It's not one that's been frontline. Now, we've had frontline pastors. We've had Reverend Lewis Coleman, my friend, pastor and mentor, Dr. Bruce Williams, and others, have been phenomenal. But as a whole, it's been challenging trying to rally individuals who are used to the status quo. In my case, even with the Black Church PAC, I appreciated the endorsement, appreciated the dollars that they sent. But if we're going to be candidates that are on the winning, that winning trajectory, we're going to need more than just the bare minimum. We're going to need all of that will, all of that political push, boots on the ground, because we're underdogs. So one of the things that I want pastors in the city of Louisville to understand is that if we're going to see change in our city, we got to stop being so scared. We got to stop putting our hand in these guys' pockets. And I'm 42. I've been around a lot of these gentlemen and women, pastors, for all my life. I haven't seen change. I've seen the same sort of maneuvering from day one. And it's time for that. It's time for that to stop. And I'll be very clear, and I don't have any hesitation in saying this. I was very disappointed in Black Louisville pastors. The people were amazing. The church community was amazing. The Louisvillians were amazing. But some of these folks that have the opportunity and the voice to speak out, I get tired of hearing what you can't do while your white counterpart does the same thing, does the very thing that you say you can't do. You can't do this while they're literally, I talked, Representative Scott, I talked and was endorsed by the mayor of Ferguson. And she told me something, and she said, I don't understand it. She said, when I ran for mayor, I didn't even have to ask. The pastors came together. They put on fundraisers, house parties, prayer breakfasts. They were committed to getting me in there. She said, I don't understand. And I've checked up on you. Seems like they like you. Why aren't they? And I said, it's because that's never been our culture here in Louisville. And I think that's a challenge. And it's something that, I'm not here to sit and simply complain about it, because moving forward, it's time to rally. And maybe I put too much stock into some mentors doing more when maybe they've never had to do more and don't know how to do more?
I think that is the exact reason. They haven't had to do more. It's been a lot of letterhead campaigns. You put your name with it, and that counts. If I put this church with it, that, you know, then they count the whole church. And I don't think that we can play those games anymore. I remember Tom Moffitt, bless his soul, before he passed away, he talked about, I see the challenges you have with your generation and younger. People think that you're going to sell people out for the white people and all of this stuff. You work with who shows up. I've seen you do that time and time again. Whoever shows up, you work with them. And he said, and I've been in the civil rights movement and in the local Louisville movement for over 40 years. The people who I see that are, you know, that are gatekeeping, that what people consider to be Uncle Toms are the older civil rights folks, or the older Black folks, or the pastors who feel like they need to go wherever the money is. And I understand that self-preservation is the first law of man, but we are working as a people. We're working to try to change a system that was built not to serve us, that was built to do exactly what it's doing and to leave us behind. And so if folks want something different, they gotta be willing to step out there and to support that. That's what we've seen. So when reporters called me and said, how did you get those voters in the Highlands and all these other places? Because a lot of those places are where my team lives. The South End, Germantown, all over. And then another thing is that they started with their neighbors. Their neighbors started with their neighbors. And so that messaging was able to spread because there were people in that community speaking up, inviting me to things that it was only 3 of us there, and a hot dog and a Coke, and we discussed the future. I was willing to meet and talk to everyone, which meant that I didn't do a lot of call time. But I'm gonna tell you all, when I did that call time, everybody wanted me to call all these rich people. They were already locked in to Greenberg.
Already locked in.
Said, oh yeah, I'm supporting Greenberg. He's my friend. I work with him. But nobody said he's done this for the community. He's done this for my people. He's done this. Everybody said, oh, I know him and I'm in business with him. And then that was it. And then a few people said, I don't even think he's ready to be mayor, but I want to tell you I donate. And if you make it through primary, I will support. So people wanted me to spend all my time doing call time to these people who I knew had already made their allegiance with Greenberg. So I spent a great deal of my time being in that community, meeting with my people, knocking on doors and talking to the voters. Because at the end of the day, this is left up to the voters. And then if everything had been equal, we had incidents that played favor for Greenberg. What happened to Greenberg only benefited him. And we need to be clear about that. What happened to Breonna Taylor did not benefit me or Tim Findley in any way, but we still showed up. And we didn't use that for the primary focus of our campaign. And that's not who we are. And so I think that it's important for people to understand that. There was avenues I could have took, but I didn't to appease the gatekeepers. And I said that we have a problem in this city, the GGG, the gangs, the gatekeepers, and the gaps in services. These were candidates, all 3 of us, who were ready to deal with every one of those. And that's why we were boxed out.
Well, and I will tell y'all, sadly, not much has changed in 2 decades, because the last Black woman from Louisville to run for Congress, the Honorable Eleanor Jordan, also struggled to get Black pastor support. It's as if they can't imagine another world, right? And not all, right? There are just some who just can't imagine another world. And she didn't get many of their support when she ran for Congress. So 2 decades later, we have the same thing replicating itself, and yet we don't have a whole lot that we can say we see for our community. So rapid fire, we've got about 10 minutes left. We've got a few questions coming through. I want to get to y'all. One question is, do you think we will ever see a Black person from Louisville elected to Congress or elected as mayor? And I'm going to say yes to both of those.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Another question, how can more white people show up for racial justice?
Oh, that's excellent. To support. I don't want white people to just donate their money and go away. I want them to be an active part of change, having the conversations, making space wherever they can, opening up doors for more opportunity. If I make it somewhere, I'm busting down those doors so that more of us can come. We need white people who are willing to be educated, to join groups like L Surge and Fairness Campaign, ACLU, get active talk to your people. And if you're in a position where you can't do that, make sure you work with your family first, because a lot of these things, people are born and this is what they hear, and generationally it's passed on. Be a disruptor. Start with yourself, start with your family, and then work out in the community.
And I'll say to that point, I agree with everything Shamika said, but I'm going to say, and give your money, because again, resources are extremely important. But as Shamika said, it's not just money. You know, I think that it's power in being public about who you support, and it's power in presence and showing up to help push those candidates. But certainly, resources matter, because at the same time, yes, show up, but also realize that it's money that moves these campaigns.
Exactly. And so can we go?
Woo,
Okay.
we got a bunch. They in my inbox. Yeah, they in my inbox wanting to talk off the camera. So we done said stuff already.
And folks are like, okay, can we talk? All right, so this is, oh no, I'm gonna come back to this as the last question. Oh, here's a question. Would you all consider running as a third party?
Oh, that's a big question. I've had Republicans ask, why the hell am I a Democrat? So Republican was like, you're smart, you're ready, you're focused. Why the hell are you a Democrat? I think that I've been a Democrat all my life. I did, and I thought that the Democratic Party represented everything that I believe in. I think all the parties have had some issues. They have let us down. I do think that Kentucky needs to move from a two-party system. I do think it needs to be opened up. I do actually like nonpartisan, but I think if we went nonpartisan for mayor, we have to go nonpartisan for the Metro Council. We have to do it all the way across the board to even start to build that. But we're still a blue and red kind of place. My team has talked about me writing in, being a write-in candidate and being a Green Party candidate. I remember meeting Cynthia McKinney. I drove her for one of our Alliance dinners, and she asked me, she was like, you have so much value here. Would you consider that? I'm open to having a discussion and considering anything, but it has to make sense. And it has to be something, a tool that I can use to bring change in Louisville. So I would say I'm open to having a conversation, but it's going to take a major shift in other areas for something like that to be successful. Until then, the Democratic Party, I'm committed to changing it and making it more inclusive. I think our race has made more people come, and even we have to be switching from Republican and independent just to be able to vote for me and you all in this campaign, in this race. So I think that we are on a path for it. I'll be willing to be open to have a discussion, but right now I have to be a Democrat.
Yeah, same thing. I've had people come to me about that. I'm open to it. I don't know if people understand the work it takes to push a campaign. And when you talk about, you know, whether it's a write-in campaign, whether it's the Green, whatever the case may be, there's another party that's trying to make its way into Louisville, and I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, yeah, I would be open to it down the road. And I've had people come to me, Shamika, about the whole Republican thing too. I've said, you know, I'm under no sort of false notion that Democrats are, you know, just, you know, without flaw. We know that there's issues there, but I identify more with democratic principles. And to be completely honest, I don't ever see me being on the same side with Mitch McConnell. So yeah, I mean, I'm committed to helping change the Democratic Party in Kentucky. And for the time being, that's where I am.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I don't want to say that I feel like I have to be a Democrat. I want to say I choose to be, and the party should be happy to have me as a Democrat, because I know to increase the number of voters who turned out on May 17th to vote, because the predictions were around 14-15% and we had about 20%. That's because people were excited, and those same people aren't necessarily excited for November 8th just because they may be registered Democrats. So the Democratic Party should be happy to have those of us who are willing to fight for something better than what we have right now. And even, to the argument about not identifying with Republicans, I certainly don't identify with a lot of what Republicans stand for, but quite honestly, I don't identify with some of what Democrats either stand for or don't stand for and fail to speak up about, right? So I want to put that out there as well. We have about 5 minutes left. So here's a question that came from the audience that I think y'all might find interesting. The racial/9th Street divide was clear in the election, with y'all getting a majority of the Black vote, and I'll add in parentheses, the white candidates getting the majority of the white votes. What are your thoughts about that?
Same old Louisville. But I'll say this, because I want to make sure I'm operating with an optimist sort of view. I think that it shows that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in the city. There's a reason why we are, again, as I've quoted before, 4th or 5th most segregated city in America. And that segregation wall is not going to come down if also white people aren't helping to tear that down. It can't simply be Black people, y'all need to do this, Black people, y'all need to do that. We just talked about the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has to stop taking for granted the Black vote. There are things that can be done outside of the election season cycle. I think about, this is just one example. It's certainly not the end all be all, but think about Shamika and Representative Scott, the Wendell Ford dinner. You go into the Wendell Ford dinner and it is, you got to walk a little bit before you see one of us. There are things that need to be done to be more inclusive and engage us in the process. And I hope if they're watching that you reach out to myself, Shamika, Representative Scott, and don't just give us the DEI position. We need to be at the table with decision makers if we're going to see, because if not, because I'm gonna tell you now, November is going to be rough in Louisville. People are not hyped to vote. As a matter of fact, I'm back and forth. And Shamika, I may have said this to you. I don't even know to what level I need to push because people are so disillusioned with it. Do I want to risk my reputation by pushing them to vote for what many are going to see as status quo, mediocrity, and same old, same old? So we're in a very, very sort of difficult place. And it's going to take some real intentional effort all the way around to sort of knock down some of these walls.
So everything Pastor Findley said, with the addition that some of our well-known Democrats started out as Republicans. They've switched back and forth. And they have strategy. They are friends when they need to be friends, and they work beyond lines of difference. Just like I said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for the people. I meant that. My voting for Keisha Dorsey, despite her not endorsing me, was proof of that. What I do think that our votes are taken for granted. I do think that we have a great deal of people who are registered who are not inspired to show up to the polls. And so I do want to challenge them to go to the polls, no matter who they vote for. Don't let them take your voice away easy. And I think that if we don't, I'm with Pastor Findley. I have my supporters that even if I say I'm backing a status quo candidate, I can't guarantee that they'll follow. They'll still write me in. Some have still said they'll stay home. Some have said they refuse to vote for either or because they don't see a difference between Durham or Greenberg. They see them as the same. And so that is a problem. And that's why we fought so hard for our primaries. I think that we need real change. We need more people who are in positions to be on these boards, commissions, and I'm committed to changing from every end, from the inside, from the outside. And voting is just one of those tools to do that. Making sure that we push whoever is elected to make better appointments and stop appointing people. There's people on that TARC board when I just met with TARC who don't even ride the TARC, who don't even need the TARC. And so the decision making that you're going to make is going to be impacted by your experiences, your lens. And so I'm committed to doing what the people want me to do. I want them to know that they have a voice in me, and I'm going to always be honest with them. And I don't even know how I'm going to vote in November. I don't know about y'all. And I never miss a chance to vote. I've never missed an election since I was 18 years old. So I'm not going to sit it out. But I'm torn. I think these folks, we need to make them work hard between now and November. That's a long road between now and November. And I don't think anybody should get comfortable and think that they got it all in the bag, because they don't. Because the people are ready to flip this place, flip the tables, flip the buildings, flip everything upside down.
Whoa, Shamika, whoa. Don't say flip the tables. You know, I got anti-Semitism. Remember when I put flip the tables? Oh, listen, they called Representative Scott. And I don't want to go off but I put a post up about flipping the tables on the Monday before Easter, because Jesus actually did that. And I got calls from people who said it's going around in circles that you are an anti-Semite off that post.
Whoa.
So I will not claim to be a biblical scholar, but what was Jesus? I'm just those things. I'm always curious.
Yeah,
okay.
That literally, and I want to make sure that you all know, I'm not talking about just regular run-of-the-mill Louisvillians. I'm talking about people that hold weight in rooms, sent word to other folks that Findley is the same thing they did with the issue. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that happened that Shamika and we were working, and you, Representative Scott, because we all know what we were all working uphill from the beginning. So again, it's not to complain because this is politics, but I want people to realize that it's when you said that, Shamika, flip them tables, I said, whoa, they don't like that.
Well, but here's the thing though, it's such a this for me, this election cycle in Louisville was very striking in how white people were able to do these dog whistles against us as Black candidates, whether trying to accuse you of anti-Semitism or saying that people who were challenging Congressman Yarmouth when he called me a liar, and him responding with, well, challenging him was reverse racism. It's very interesting this election cycle, how with everything going on in the country and the hate directed at Black people, Latinx folks, Indigenous people, Asian people, to come back to Louisville, which everybody needs to erase liberal Louisville from their mouths. It's the moderate metro, to come back to the moderate metro and see people basically be comfortable with, to sit with, to allow themselves to stomach that kind of hatred directed at us as Black candidates.
And let me throw this in too. If you're watching Louisville, since I'm not in the mayoral race anymore, can you go ahead and dismiss my protest charges? Can we go ahead and get that taken care of now, because they're still there?
I think that's ridiculous that your charges are still there. Drop Pastor Findley's charges. That is ridiculous. And that's why Representative Scott and we joined with the lawsuit, because that's the only language that they understand. And my whole purpose of joining it was to lift up the rest of the protesters who were still fighting these cases years later. And like I said, here we are years later. So I'm not backing any candidate right now, but I'm looking at these judicial races. Yeah. I'm going to make sure that judges like Mary Shaw, that people are educated to understand that she started it all. It all started with her when she signed those warrants in minutes without regard of Breonna Taylor's life. I'm going to make sure that we lift up all of these seats. You have judges like Annette Karam. You have a lot of these people who have been making terrible, violent, let's call it what it is, violent decisions against our people and against poor people with no regard, not being checked. There's no check and balances without the ballot. I'm like Malcolm X. It's the bullet or the ballot. Stop looking for these handguns and looking for the people who are making the valid decisions in these boardrooms, in these courtrooms, in these meetings, in these dark pacts that they're forming. Those are the valid decisions that are impacting the gains, the gaps in services, the gatekeepers that we continually deal with. And we put ourselves out there. And guess what? That makes us unhireable. Most people don't hire us. I told Greenberg, I'm not looking for a job from you. I feel like taking a job in that administration will take my voice away. My voice is more powerful if I'm able to lift up the people. I will be happy to advise, to connect people to be on those boards and commissions, to make sure that we're getting our people in every place they need to be to start instituting the change that we deserve. We have been dealt with nothing but injustice after injustice. Us stepping up to run for office is because we said this is another way to fight that injustice. It is just one way. We need all of you to understand the power in your vote, the power in your voice. Go to these meetings. There's a budget meeting, I think, tonight. Make sure that or Thursday, make sure you attend these Metro Council meetings, groups like the 490 Project. Even if you don't agree with everything someone do, know that them working on change holds accountability to the highest level. Louisville Metro has become not liberal Louisville, like Representative Scott said, but moderate Louisville, because people are doing enough to get by, and we're tired of that. We're tired of the glass ceilings. I'm going to be poor no matter what right now, and I'm done, and I'm not done fighting for our city.
Right.
All right then. All right then. So we are at time. So I want to close with this last question to y'all, which is, how have you been taking care of yourself with everything that is going on in the world? Because we have seen the weight of attacks on Black people and other people of color, whether it was the Buffalo grocery store shooting in New York, or Uvalde, Texas, and kids being massacred, and mostly Latinx population. How are you taking care of yourself with all of that and the ways y'all have to show up regardless of a primary election? Like, y'all are showing up in unique ways in your communities already. Right? You didn't have to have a political position or title to do that. How are you taking care of yourself?
Well, I think that's something that I think is unique to those who are on this call. We're not the only ones, but we didn't have the benefit after our primary to simply go back to business as usual and kind of disappear until it's time to campaign again. We have actual roles that require us to be back in the fight, back on the front line, back in the community. So with that being said, I realized I had to get away for a couple of days. So I did something that I have not done ever. I talked about it at church Sunday. I went out to the woods. I just walked around on trails. I talked to myself, got myself together, and I feel good. And I it was only 2 or 3 days, but one thing that I'm committed to doing is being more intentional about self-care, about mental health, about making sure that I'm taking a step back. And obviously, my faith plays a huge part in that. So that's what I'm doing. And prayers to Texas, prayers to those in Buffalo, those families. And I don't want us, before I, give it to you, Shamika, what happened in Texas is absolutely atrocious. But I don't want us to move past Buffalo, that we don't want to just simply move to the next thing. We've got an issue in our country, and it takes all of us. We're going to have to hold these folks' feet to the fire, because this is an issue that is not going to stop. These guns, these bad policies. That's why we need people like Representative Scott in key positions, people like Shamika Parrish-Wright in key positions, who are not afraid and say, this stuff ain't gonna fix itself. So yeah, self-care. That's the question. That's the answer to the question.
Thank you. Shamika?
Well, my dear friend, I'm not the best at self-care, but I have been practicing things. My house was on autopilot during this campaign. My Christmas tree is still up. So I've been cleaning, organizing the house, being present with my kids, my grandkids, really taking it all in, thinking about my next steps forward with work and with community. And you're right, we rarely get a day off. I posted my schedule the next day after the elections. I showed people the rest of my schedule just so they can see that I'm not faking it. I'm going to always show up and be here for the community. And so today it was something I was proud of. We've been working hard in coalition since the 8 jail deaths we had locally to have an amnesty day, but I've been asking for an amnesty period since we started the Bail Project here in 2018. Well, today was the deadline to sign up for those amnesty court days, which is going to be June 6th, 7th, and June 7th, 8th, and 9th. I was very proud of that because we've been working on that. But so that tells you that the work continues on. There's still people getting locked up right now. Like Pastor Findley alluded to, Buffalo is still dealing with that tragedy. What happened in Texas, it sits with me. The inaction, I work with raw tools to help turn guns into garden tools. I am against, my husband loves guns, but I told him we cannot buy any automatic AR-15s or anything like that. We have to be committed on every level against this gun violence on every level. I want our guns to stop being recommissioned and brought back into our society and sold to our young people. I told Greenberg when I met with him, I want real gun backs like Reverend Coleman used to do, but with real money, that not just a $25 gift card. I want people to not be worried about being criminalized for turning in guns. I also want those guns to be sold, and the families giving travel vouchers so they can get out of the city and go travel, not just around the states, but out of the country. So you can get a real picture of the world. Louisville is not it. Louisville and Kentucky is a place where white fear, or what are they calling it now? White replacement theory is going to hold on the strongest because of our makeup. White people some white people are scared. I know that most white people want to be on the right side of history. So what I'm trying to do is join book groups and be a part of people who are about moving us forward as a whole. And so getting people out. So using those buybacks for people to travel and for studio time. Most of the young people want studio time, whatever kind of art it is, whether it's music, whether it's physical art, drawing, whatever it is, giving them more opportunities, taking that money that we just keep squandering. I read a report that said Louisville got squandered $91 million just in lawsuits, wrongful arrest, wrongful convictions, all of that. We got to stop those things because those things take away from that. We're paying for these incidences in the forefront and after they happen as we continue to pay for it. So for me, it was about self-care. You see why I suck at it? I have kids out here and I'm worried about the future of our young people. I'm worried about our immigrant children. I'm worried about all of the things that they're dealing with. So I'm committed to ending the gangs, the gatekeepers, and the gaps in services. And so to do that, I'm starting with myself, making sure that I take care of home first. I'm present for my family and I'm listening. I'm going to take a vacation and then I'm getting right back at it.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much
for the Reverend Scott, what about you?
Oh, listen, I'm going to continue to be a state representative through the end of the year. As y'all probably know, I'm apparently the Black woman the legislature loves to hate because they redistricted me out of District 41. It no longer even touches the west end of Louisville. Y'all talk about political racism and how that shows up. So even if I were wanting to run for re-election in District 41, that was an impossibility. But I'm going to continue to be a state rep through the end of the year, using that position in whatever way that I can to lift up our communities, like today, sending a letter to President Obama and Governor Beshear to say, listen, one of the kids, one of the girls in Uvalde who was shot and killed, her father is in a federal prison here in Kentucky. And the Board of Prisons denied his compassionate release to attend his murdered daughter's funeral. And I'm not going to be quiet about that. You better do something about that. First of all of our policies allowed the shooting to happen, allowed the shooting in Buffalo to happen. But not only that, the response to the shooting was atrocious. And we cannot sit back and say that a father in federal prison in Kentucky should not have a compassionate release to attend his daughter's funeral. So I'm going to continue to use my voice and my platform as the people are asking me to do so. And I just wanted to say, and as far as self-care though, Shamika knows now, she's terrible at it. I'm good at it. I'm taking good care of myself. And, do it, like you said, Pastor, doing all the hiking I need to do, eating well, drinking lots of water, resting, when I want to, binge watching. And as y'all can tell, I have plenty of books to read. So yeah, taking good care of myself and taking care of my son's 2 dogs. So that's quite the adventure in and of itself. But thank y'all so much.
An adventure. And I want to say the one main question everybody wanted from all of us is, will we run again? I think it's unequivocally yes. We all will run again. We have to strategize on what offices and maybe figure out how we'll run so that we can support each other in these runs. We also want to bring Robert Bell and some other folks to the table to see how we can get everything that Tim talked about. I was already working on a Kentuckiana Injustice Freedom Fund to set up a kind of fund that we could tap into for activists and organizers who are people, protesters like Pastor Findley, who are still fighting their cases, to help them with legal fees, support fees. And then we're going to see if we can add an arm on there to help fund grassroots campaigns, because that is what we need to move this forward. So the short answer is yes, we all will run. We don't know what offices yet, but it is in our future. For me, the next 2 years is going to be spent getting better people elected, getting people to those polls, and working on these funds to help support grassroots candidates.
And let me say this too, Shamika, I'd love to, and Representative Scott, I think that before November gets here, we need to come together and put together some things that these 2 current mayoral candidates need to come to something that we're putting together that require more information. So I think to the people, I don't want to speak for them, but we're committing to working with each other. And I think that coming up in November, we've seen how things are played, and I'm looking forward over the next couple of months to sending out invitations for candidates to come to our event.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Ballot too. I'm going to turn my campaign pages into a Shamika's ballot so that we can start talking to candidates that are running for judge, that are running, I don't care, it's Metro Council, state rep, definitely the mayoral campaigns. We want to present our own ballots to our constituents on who has earned our vote. So I think that's a good challenge for us moving forward, because people want to know who they should vote for.
Right.
That's exactly right. And y'all, I misspoke. I said President Obama. Listen, wishful thinking. But I meant President Biden.
I was good with it. When you said it, I was like, yeah,
you're
fine.
Good. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you're fine.
Right. But I wanted to correct myself. But as we close, I want to say, first of all, y'all ran for freaking mayor, and I ran for Congress. We did something that very few people did at all this election cycle, and not a whole lot of Black folks in Louisville have done in the past decade. So yay to y'all for running and doing the thing. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in. Of course, this is going to be archived on, I think, all of our Facebook pages and YouTube sites. If you want to engage with us, I believe Ashanti posted in the chat on both Facebook and YouTube how you can connect with all of us. I don't think there's anybody out there, if they're being honest, who can say they can't reach us. Yes, you can. You know you can, because we're on every platform. So thank y'all again, and thank you to everyone who tuned in, and y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, people power.
Thank you all. Thank you.
All right.